Hello, welcome to Looking Forward, an interactive take on looking at young Indigenous leaders here in New Brunswick. Today, we're brought to you by Dialogue New Brunswick and STU Experiential Learning. Dialogue New Brunswick is a non-profit organization led by a volunteer board of directors with a mandate to help the province of New Brunswick be a more socially cohesive community. We're happy to be here today and would like to thank our sponsors, Elsipogtog First Nation, and the Joint Economic Development Initiative, or JEDI. JEDI is an Indigenous nonprofit organization that works with the 16 First Nation communities and the off-reserve population in New Brunswick. JEDI programs include business incubators and accelerators, advanced ICT training, trades training, and digital and financial literacy training. In addition, JEDI offers reconciliation training on the history of Indigenous people in Canada and how to implement reconciliation in the workplace. And I would like to give special thanks to Francis Simon and Julie Augustine. Hi, welcome to the podcast. Today we're welcomed by one of the most talented people I know, at least, Talon Simon from Elsipogtog First Nation. Hi, Talon, how are you?
Hello, how are you, Tiger?
I'm good, man. How was the drive up?
It was nice. I didn't see a lot of moose. It was a nice sunny morning. I got a nice buffalo chicken wrap. It was a very good time.
At Minto?
Yes.
That's a good Tim Hortons. So, you know, clearly we brought you on because to me you're one of the most inspiring, at least, youth leaders in Elsipogtog that comes from Elsipogtog, and in general New Brunswick. You know, clearly you own Rez Famous, and I was wondering first if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Ooh, so my name is Talon Simon. As you know, I'm from Elsipogtog First Nation. As with Tiger, we knew each other growing up, and I started my entrepreneurship journey when my mother would go to Moncton. I would move with her in Moncton, and I would go to Harrison Trumbull High School and take all the entrepreneurship classes there. And I would intake all the information I could, and that's where sort of my spark and little understanding of business would start there. But I would also know that my mom started her own jewelry business with tribal turquoise. She would handcraft all of her jewelry, and I would sell with her on the powwow trail from, I'd say, roughly around 2016 up until early 2018. I would be on the powwow trail with her. And I would also work with my sister with her Old Nuizi, it's that Easy brand, her language teaching program. And I would start, that's where I would be introduced into clothing. It's where I would be introduced into interacting and understanding a customer base and all that. So it's really been a family honed business and understood within all of our family. And I guess I'm the youngest child, and my mom was always waiting for me to start my own business. And I was glad to be able to have so much support from her and my sister as well, and my brother, and it's been a great time.
That's awesome. First I wanted to say, yeah, we were actually baptized together.
That's what I'm saying. It was me. It was the 3 T's. It was Thunder, Tiger, and Talon all on the same day. So that was wild. Coolest names, they'd say.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So I was like now that we heard a little bit about yourself, I just want to know what inspired you, or what made Rez famous. What happened that gave you that creative
The pinnacle.
sensation? Yeah. The pinnacle, yes.
The creative birth point. It was, so I actually wrote, and I still write a lot of music, and Rez Famous originally started as it was just a song title, and because it was a nickname that I was kind of like given when I went to, I would live in PEI for 2 summers back to back, and I would travel to Avec and Rocky Point, and I would do a lot of shows for the theater group called Mi'kmaq Legends. I would be Gloose Cab in this theater group, and a lot of the time the community would get to know who I am, and I was the only New Brunswick Mi'kmaq actor in the group. Everyone else was a PEI Mi'kmaq, and so in Avec, I remember one time I was called just Rez Famous, and I was like, oh my God. And I really liked the name, so originally I just wrote a song about that. And but the title of that song was always just like really impactful to me. And so when I went to Mount Allison after I graduated high school, it was my first year in Mount Allison, I would meet an artist and another musician named Wolf Castle from Pabineau First Nation, and him and I would eventually do a show together for the ECMAs in Halifax. It was my debut show, which was really cool. And I had the idea of, I should print, like, we should like wear something on stage. And so I did my first ever printouts of Rez Famous, of the t-shirts, and he was really for it. And one of my artist friends, Emma, was they were both very supportive of the Rez Famous idea. And I think just having this two key people in my life, and my mother, who was also always wanting to be like, when are you going to do this? When are you going to do anything? Just those people being very key to, and very just like, this is great. Like, you should just, go forward with it. And I always liked the name Rez Famous. And so the summer of 2018, I would launch the brand, and I would just print a couple of shirts. First locally, what's the place in Rexton called?
Presto Stitch.
Presto. I would work with Presto. Shout out Presto. They'd be the first to ever print any Rez Famous merch on a larger scale. And I would go to Tobic Powwow, and I would take a great photo there with my artist friend Emma, and they would blow up on Instagram, which is amazing. And I'm still so much thankful for all of that. And I guess from there is really where the momentum picked up, and I'm just very grateful for that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So I do want to discuss your musical aspirations, but we can get back to that, because I kind of want to hear a little bit more about your brand. Like, what does Rez Famous mean to you?
To me, Rez Famous is, and a lot of times, even like growing up a little bit, you'd hear like, oh, that's so Rez, but used in like a negative way, or sometimes. And I always was like, being Rez Famous was always, when I heard the name, I was like, I was proud of that. I was like, oh, that's cool as hell. And to sort of bring the term, just like, it's more positivity into it, just bringing more, just like, yeah, this is where I'm from. This is, because to me, and looking back as a kid, I guess I didn't like understand the impact of what Elsipogtog and all that brought. But when I was, living in Elsipogtog in my childhood, the language was there, the culture was there. And oftentimes today, the place where you can find our culture and our language and just who we are as people is often mostly located on reserve. And so with that, it is something that I always want to just like highlight as a positive, like, our knowledge is there, and just to bring light to it. And it's also just like a little funny thing. People always laugh when I always like to bring a little bit of comedy, like, oh, so Rez Famous, or, stuff like that. And like, I always get people like, hey, I made this hit Facebook post, you want to sponsor me? So I just think that like thing is just, we always get these Rez Famous memes. We always get these people just sharing big things in different parts of all over Turtle Island, just sharing, just really popping off, really getting big within the Indian meme circle or something like that, and their own new circle, yeah. And yeah, I think just being proud of being Rez Famous is something really cool, and I'm really cool to be able to be a part of that.
It's really awesome, man. If you're comfortable, can we talk about the designs? Because to me, it seems that maybe I'm overthinking, but there's definitely a satire of, I would say, a satire of colonialism in terms of, they base their wealth off of colonialism and theft, and you're not basing your wealth off of it, but you're kind of showcasing that by taking what they have and just making it your own and making it indigenous. The indigeneity is what they call it.
Indigenization, indigeneity. Yeah, it is. I mean, most certainly my earlier logos were like I call it my red box logo on my store. I'm not wearing it right now, but it'd be just a red box and would have the text of Rez Famous on it. And it would look like some brands like Supreme. We can say that, it's okay. And an interesting part of doing the primary Rez Famous logo that is showcased everywhere, that gets a lot of conversation talking, is the Rez Famous teepee logo, or the wigwam, or more primarily is the wigwam for Mi'kmaq people. And that logo has sparked a lot of conversation, and it's sparked a lot of I wouldn't say controversy, but if you check the CBC article comments on any story I've been on, there is some divisiveness, mostly with people who aren't familiar with the culture or the understanding of what I want to do with Rez Famous or do with it. And when you look back in a lot of old Mi'kmaq hieroglyphs and art, the 3 flowers on top of the wigwam is actually the same 3 flowers you see in our double curve, in our Mi'kmaq double curve. And we've always drew in our hieroglyphs, we always had lines going diagonal. So in a way, it just so happened to all fall in place of how my primary logo is. I always see it as a spin-off of who we always were. But it just so happens to catch the eye and maybe look like something else. I'm cool with that.
Man. That's so cool. I love the explanation, the three flowers. I don't think much people would understand that. So thank you for explaining that. Like, that's so, like, that kind of blows my mind, actually.
Yeah, looking back in the old hieroglyphs, it was very cool. And to very see, like, these designs have always been there. Yeah. And yeah.
So, regarding Rez Famous, can you tell me a little bit about the 2022 Orange Shirt Initiative?
Ooh, so where that really started was over the summer. This is mostly from one of my workers who was always asking, like, what can we do for our community and what can we do to give back? And that was a dialogue that we had throughout the whole summer, and was talking like, what can we do? What is this? And what I originally always wanted to do was, I did want to make a line, but where do I start? And with the passing last September of my Mi'kaju, who was a residential school survivor, one of my colleagues brought up, like, what if we do an orange shirt in honor of that, since you are a direct descendant of a school survivor, and to give back to Elsipogtog, and to give back to, if we can, to the kids, and if anything we can do with that. So we talked with the youth center, saying, hey, would this be cool if we designed a shirt for the youth center and sell the orange shirt to raise money for you guys? And they were all for it. They were very happy, and I was like, okay, let's get going. So September 1st, I announced the design, and just from there, it was setting up pre-orders all September, and roughly 10 days before the 30th. So on September 20th, we would get all of the pre-orders ready, all of our supplies ready to go on the road. We'd be doing mass mail-outs, and from the 1st of September to the 20th of September, we would just get massive amounts of orders and support from our community, but all over Turtle Island as well, from Ottawa to BC, some in America as well, which is very nice. And a lot of local businesses just really wanted to support once they knew that these funds were going to help out the youth center in our community. And I was just hoping to be able to motivate people and maybe continue more of that with other people's communities. Maybe more brands or more people are able to give back when they do acknowledge Orange Shirt Day and stuff like that. Especially, we want to be able to show the understanding of, like, this has to go back to the community. These sort of initiatives will go back to the people who would need it and pretty much, deserve it as well. Yeah.
Well, first I want to say, Meskeg, for your loss. I'm sorry. Yeah. But it's, it's good to hear that something like really beautiful came from that moment of your life. Mm-hmm. And it's really good to have, Indigenous business promote Orange Shirt Day as long as it's indigenously owned. Yeah. Like, you don't want to go to Walmart, right, and buy a shirt where the profits are going directly back to Walmart. Mm-hmm. So, thank you for providing that outlet for people, especially Indigenous and non-Indigenous alike. And it was a very beautiful, a very beautiful initiative you took.
Yeah, I appreciate that. it was really it was really eye-opening for that time to do all that, because also what we did on the 30th is we went to Shubenacadie grounds and did the ceremony with the Shubenacadie community on the grounds. So my whole family, my immediate family, we all went there, and that was the first time we ever went to the grounds of where the school was. And I think just making that month full circle was very healing. It was that whole September felt like almost a big ceremony of, it was helping the community, and it all ended at the school grounds where we could all gather together. And yeah, that whole September was very personal, but I'm grateful that I was able to do that. And yeah,
it's very inspiring, and that's the reason why we brought you on this podcast, to showcase things like this, to show the other people, show the other Indigenous people that you can take the initiative yourself, and you can provide different outlets for people. And thank you for that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I do want to touch on, if you're comfortable, like what the powwow trip feels like, what the powwow trail feels like when you're on the road selling.
Ooh,
I actually saw you in St. Mary's this summer.
Yes, that was probably the St. Mary's powwow this year was the hottest day to powwow. This summer has been, so what's been interesting is I found the prior two powwow seasons I would go on right before COVID would hit. It would be the summer of 2018, summer of 2019. I would start powwowing, I'd say late April or early May, and it would end probably end of September, where the powwow trail would be. So it would be 5 continuous months. Is that roughly? Yeah, it's roughly 5 continuous months of on the road every weekend, and sometimes middle of the week we would pop up in other communities that weren't having powwows, so we'd be able to get to them. And I found going on the road, for me, it's kind of I was kind of adjusting. I enjoy the lifestyle. I enjoyed it for 20 when I was just starting in 2018. I already had experience 2 years prior working with my mother for her jewelry business, so having my own stuff on the road was, we just had to get a little bigger vehicle, go on the road with our inventory. And I find that my summer would be more consumed with powwowing, but I would find off time during the fall, and I would take sometimes my Octobers off and continue for the holiday season from November to December, and from January to April is just like chill time. And so for me, it is getting ready to gear up every summer, and then a little bit of break, holidays, big break. And I enjoy being on the road. It's meeting a lot of different people, going to every single community, and spreading that like Rez Famous joy to everywhere I can go. And it's actually very exciting to the smaller reserves I don't get to go to, who happen to hear about me there. When I got to go to Pabineau last year for the holidays, it was such an eye-opening, like as small as that community is, everyone really showed up and were very happy to have the stuff, and I was just like super grateful to be there, and just to see all the support for my designs and my brand. I'm just very grateful for every community I visit.
So we're back in it. Will lead us back to let's move on from your brand, and let's talk a bit about your music and your performance. You were talking about being cast in this production and playing Glooskap.
Yeah, I was a Glooskap, yeah.
And I actually saw that in the Indigenous filmmaking, that one right there, the Indigenous Filmmaking Festival in 2019 or 20, I can't remember.
Oh my God! And
I believe they played it. It was like a play, but you were in there, and it was awesome. It was like really funny, and you were energetic, and you really took the like you stole the show from everyone else. So
oh geez,
it wasn't fair to everyone else. You were too enthusiastic.
Oh geez,
it was awesome.
I did I think they might have filmed the Mi'kmaq Legend show. I also worked a short film with Film NV for a short film called Bad Medicine. Primarily, I went to school for, so when I went to Mount Allison, I went to a theater major. I was very much into theater, and being able to study that was something I thought I would be very into, but I realized the performance was my primary focus, and I love the performance side of it all. And so that's why I would move more into business later on as my focus, but I always enjoy a good performance. So theater, I did a couple musicals, music, live performance I very much enjoy, or even just creating just performance art. I'm very into that.
So, you know, it was my bad. It was actually Bad Medicine that was being shown, not...
the big model. Yeah, I remember there was something that happened. I wasn't there. I didn't get to make it that day, but I had people messaging me like, they're showing Bad Medicine at this film festival. And I was like, apparently it was very wild. And I was like, so with Bad Medicine, I wrote and filmed that in my last year of high school. So I was still like 17, 18 when I'm in that. And roughly 2 years later, I kind of forgot that I did it. I got a message saying, oh, yo, the editing's all done. And I'm like, what? I was like, oh my God. And they say, oh yeah, it's going to be showcased. We're going to submit it to Imaginative for Imaginative 2019. Yeah. And my film would be showcased as the Bell Tiff Lightbox Center, downtown Toronto. That was very cool, and I was not expecting that at all. I was going to NSCC in Halifax at the time, where I was studying radio, television, and journalism. And I would get an email in September saying, hey, we're going to showcase your film at this film festival downtown Toronto, and you know, your flights and all that will be paid for by Film NB or stuff like that. I was like, oh my God. And we had the whole crew and cast come to the premiere of the short, like, little skit comedy film. And yeah, that was super. I was just come to think of it, yeah, it felt so long ago, but it was super surreal to be able to do that as well.
Oh, that's actually like insane. I did a Imaginative in 2015 or 16. Ooh. And they're really like amazing, like, company to work with.
Ooh, it was very cool to be there. I'm very glad. I heard this year was really awesome too.
I didn't actually get to check, but I found them on TikTok just randomly. But how did that experience, like getting to travel to Toronto to like, so for someone to recognize your work, how did that feel?
Cause yeah, that would be 1 year into Rez. I would just start Rez Famous. No, that'd be my second year Rez Famous. So, so going there with my brand and just as me, prior to the showing of my film, it was, you know, I was wearing my Rez Famous. A lot of people, oh my God, that's so cool. But during the night of the premiere, I would dress up as my character in the film, and he in the show he went by a lot of names. Primarily, I would just call myself Joe, but in a lot of the little introduction names, it'd be like, you know, Dances with the Bingo Dabbers, like names I would come up with on the spot. It was a very improv little short film. And when we would do Q&A after the film, when I would go on stage, you know, I'd have my double braids, I'd have my Rez Famous hoodie with my denim jacket. I was just sort of being this character and these big round shades and all that, and be like, oh my God, we thought you were just some random Olnu. Like, I was like, oh, you're the character. And that was just super fun. I never really had a character moment where it was just like a little established thing. And that was very fun to do. Just I was sort of downtown a little bit, Toronto. Just walking around, sort of being the character, sort of just like chatting with people, and just be able to be recognized within, like, you know, the film circle. That was very nice. And when I heard it was shown in Fredericton, I heard some directors were really into it. I wish I was there, but I heard it was a fun time when it was shown in Fredericton as well.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I believe the showcase was, I can't remember.
Silver Wave.
It was. She's the one who directed 257 Years of Resilience.
Oh yes.
And she was there watching your film as well.
Oh man. Yeah, so where do you want to lead off of? Just more of the stuff I've done, like acting wise?
Well, actually, I want to kind of touch into some of your music.
Oh, okay.
So I have like some features such as Rocket Ship and Handle Business is my favorite.
That was very awesome to work on with
Ethan Peters.
Ethan Peters, yeah. Oh, we'll fix that.
Okay, Talon. So, can you tell me a little bit about your music career, like such features such as Handle Business and Rocket Ship?
Ooh, so working with Ethan on those songs was very surreal and very it was something I always wanted to do, because I always knew Ethan ever since he was making DJ Hero mixes on Facebook when we were both in middle school and all that. I always saw him making music, and I never really it would be roughly around 2019, 2020, I would really see his catalog. I'd see him working with artists in our community like Tegan and Qu'il and C. Brazy. It would be very much this local collective they had. And I always wanted to be in on it. I was like, I love engineering. I love making music as well. And to see that, like, collective in Elsipogtog being made, it was just something I knew I had to tap into. And when I would message Ethan, he was working on a project for his debut album, Anticipated, and I told him, hey, I work in music engineering. I can mix your music. I can do some features on the songs as well. I can write hooks, verses. And he's like, oh, amazing. I don't think he really knew that I was working music so creatively, or working creatively in music, because I was primarily just the Rez Famous guy. And so I'd send him stuff. We would send some stuff back and forth. He would send me some beats. And for the first song I recorded for him was Handle Business. I was off tour for Rez Famous in November, so it'd be November 2020. COVID was still like around, and reason why I was off tour is I actually got strep throat. So I was like, my mom was like, okay, and I'll take some Rez Famous workers. We're going to continue our tour in Nova Scotia, but you have to go home. I'm like, absolutely fair. And so when I was just sitting down, I was listening to all the beats that Ethan sent over, and I really was really attached to that Handle Business beat. And with my strep throat, rough sounding voice, I wrote and recorded the hook just in like one sitting in just one night. I sent it over to him. He's like, oh man, you sound real rough, but that sounds dope. And I was like, oh my God, yeah. And he ended up putting all of his boys on there. I reached out to my connections with Wolf Castle, who is from Pabineau, and from there it was just going back and forth on how we want the song to sound, and it eventually became what it is, and it became one of his top songs, and I'm very grateful for that. And another very interesting song that came together was working with Drives the Common Man from Eskasoni, who's living in Ontario. I heard his stuff. He was always a punk rock musician, but I think I've been following him since like 2019, because I heard he was like just a big pop punk singer. And I said, hey Ethan, do you wanna check this guy's stuff out? But he was very much like, nah, he's probably going to be trash, because Ethan, he loves to maintain a certain quality, so he's very iffy with working with new people. So I remember getting him to work with the idea with Drives. Was at first was like, he was a little more reserved about it, but when I reached out to Drives, I mixed a beat with one of Ethan's beats. So I put guitars over one of these drum tracks that Ethan had around, and I sent it to Drives, and I said, hey, do you want to like try something out? Do you want to sing over this? And he said, oh my God, this sounds dope, because me and Drives always wanted to work together, but we just never found the right song or anything. And once I sent that over to him, he brought back an amazing, beautiful verse, and it just all came together from there. And that was and from there, Drives and Ethan have been making amazing tracks together, and I was just glad to be able to make that connection. And now Drives is blowing up, doing amazing things, and I'm just glad to be able to have worked with him and continue to work with him, which is awesome.
What's the song that you're referencing called?
For Rocket.
Is it Rocket Ship?
Yeah, Rocket Ship. Yes. Rocket Ship was the one that we, me and Andrew and Ethan all first worked together on, which was.
Ethan's he's definitely I'll call him a student of the game, right? He loves what he does.
Yeah, he's he really knows what he wants and really knows how he wants it to sound. And how I come in with making music is I will change a lot of stuff around. And so for some people, I realize that's very jarring, especially because I've been working more on the mixing, engineering side of music, and producing as well. And when I work with Wolfcastle, he's very open to giving me what he has, and I mix stuff so much around, it's pretty much almost a new song by the time he gets it back. But he'll say, oh, I want this different, or I want it to more sound like the original. And I very much enjoy remixing and tinkering around with music and just trying out new things that I either am trying out, figuring out how to do, or I just love the sound of. And sometimes it turns out great. Sometimes it turns out to be a handle business, which has been very cool to work on. Yes.
So you did touch on this a little bit. How did that how did recording feel and go in the pandemic for you? How did you operate?
So prior to the pandemic, I was actually living in Halifax with Wolfcastle. We were roommates, and we would have a little studio room, which was probably the first time him and I both had because I think he was going to university at Mount Allison. He would have a little studio in his apartment, but it'd be one of my first apartments to have a little home studio. So for that whole year at when I was going to NSCC, it was very much him and I just bouncing ideas back and forth, and I would be mixing a lot of his projects, and we just be sitting down, working together, saying, oh, I want it to sound like this. I would often sort of coach him, hey, I want you to say this like that. And so I think working with Wolfcastle initially has always been very, it taught me how to be an engineer, taught me how to be a musician, and it really helped in the collaboration environment. Because I always believe that, especially as Olnus, we make the best art in collaboration. And I've always made the best art if I'm ever in the same room with another artist, be it Rez Famous, be it music, video, film. I think me personally, and I find as Olnu people, we thrive on being collaborative, and that's something I always like to work towards and work on.
That's awesome, man. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about your YouTube channel?
Oh, so that, I mean, it goes back very far. I don't know. So what specifics have you seen? What are you interested in? You went through all of the Talon Simon YouTube channel, maybe? Oh, geez.
Or I think that Bear was in the name.
Oh, God. So I would make that. It was just as any middle schooler does, with a camera and who likes to act. That has made little silly skits. You could probably go back on Facebook and probably see all my original stuff. I privatized a lot of stuff on YouTube that I saw. I didn't age well, but some of the older stuff, I was like, oh, okay, it was a moment in time. So I was started with my friends in middle school when it was grade 8 when I first, so it'd be last year of middle school, I'd moved to Moncton, and I'd made a small little group of friends there, and they're kind of oh, we want to start a YouTube channel as well. We all had this kind of same mentality, so I'd make little skits with them originally for my grade 8 and grade 9, and that's the very beginning was just me doing random stuff as well. I'd edit a Bear song on YouTube where, I don't know, I had no direction, and I still don't have any direction for the YouTube channel, but nowadays I'm either working on a random skit, promoting a piece of music, or a school project when I was going to UNB, or some random stuff you'll see on there. And I do little mini documentaries, or what do you call it? Video essays. There we go. I do little video essays on topics to be graded. So that's why you'll see very much my sources. I mean, which is very good. You should always quote your sources. But yeah, it was very much for schoolwork. But later on during the pandemic, I would make a skit called ASMR, but land back ASMR, something like that, because I was I appreciate the ASMR for like just random like tingle sounds. Like, oh, that's fun. That's fun. It's weird. A lot of people find it weird. I'm like, whatever. But it's very easy to make fun of. So I originally just did that during early pandemic times. I think like April or May. I'd make a skit. I had 2 just nice microphones lying around, and I would just do an ASMR skit of. I even forget what I said. I just whisper like land back, or whisper just a bunch of random things in a very ASMR way, and it got picked up by CBC. I never thought it would be. I thought it was just a silly skit, and CBC was like, "Hey, do you want to be interviewed about indigenous ASMR?" I'm like, I just made a little silly video. I do appreciate the art form, but I was just messing around, guys. But that was like another time I was on CBC for a little skit I did, and primarily from there, I would like to make more content in the future, but I guess Rez Famous and music have been taking up a lot of my time, but I do appreciate making a good skit and a good little video here and there.
Quickly, how are we for time?
We are at 2:53.
Okay.
We'll finish up, it's fine. I got something to pick with the kids.
Okay. Cool. So, yeah, why I bring up your YouTube channel is because clearly you showcase this immense sense of creativity from such a young age. When did you feel like, oh, this is what I want to do? I want to create things.
Ooh. I think when I always heard that, I had a lot of artists in my family at a young age. It kind of inspired me and said, oh, like, I don't want to say like, oh, I was born for this, but I had a lot of like musicians, writers and artists in my family, and I guess seeing that sort of motivation around me was like, I was like, oh, I'm interested in just videography. I was interested in, or just like writing and just figuring out at a very young age, how can I make something on video? I always thought that was cool, and just as a kid, I just went for it. And I had a small group, I had a small collective who wanted to work with it as well. And again, that brings back collaboration. All it really takes is like, you can work on it by yourself, but I think in the beginning, just find people who want to do the same thing and maybe start filming stuff, and maybe you'll come up with something cool, and maybe you can start from there. I'm very glad that my mom at a young age has bought me like Sony Vegas editing studio at a young age. She's like, go for it. Windows Movie Maker's trash. Try the editing on here. I'm like, okay. And so I would play around with editing like I originally wanted to be a Lego YouTuber where I make Lego skits, but stop motion is so hard. It's so difficult. I have like so many just like little like failed like this is too hard. I'll do something live action. I went full live action in 8th grade. It was crazy. And then early on as well, I would get a Yeti microphone, which is when I would work a little bit in I don't want to say voice acting. I'd play around with voice effects. I'd play around with a lot of like little stuff, and which would lead me into music as well. Because like, oh, I can like record on beats. I was like, oh, that's cool. On Audacity, it's very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Audacity.
Shout out Audacity.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. I had a little. I'm just gonna have to be real. I had a little brain fart, but yeah, I was gonna ask you. You know, you talked about your mother a lot during this podcast,
Yeah.
so as like a sort of support system, something to fall back onto.
Oh yeah.
So how important is it to you? You think that that support system means?
I think it was very. It was essential. It was very essential to be able to have that. For me personally, and I'm just grateful to have it. I'm very grateful because I know perhaps not a lot of people are able to get the kind of support that my mother gives me, and she's just very much for and will criticize, like, try this. I don't like that. Try this differently. She's like very much, but it wouldn't be in a perfectionist way where it would hamper on me. I'm just grateful for her feedback on a lot of things and her motivating me and wanting to be a entrepreneur. an actor, a skit writer, a musician. She was always very much for me being in the creative arts, which I'm so grateful for. And I think, without her support, I wouldn't be here today, obviously. And yeah, I'm just so very much grateful for everything she has done. And funny story. So before I was born, and I didn't know this, my mom she was an independent contractor for startup businesses to help them pretty much start up to like businesses that are just getting going. She will basically, she's an accountant. She had a lot of contacts with government funding programs. So very early on, before I was born, she was already starting small businesses with other companies. So I didn't realize that pretty much my whole life she was like waiting for me to do that, and she had already the specialties to be able to do that, which I'm very grateful to be able to have, and I'm learning from her as well. And ultimately, I give a lot of the advice that she gave me to other people. She herself is very busy, and people do talk to her because they do know that she is a very helpful resource. But I want to give as much as I can as well on the time that I have to people who want to start up a business in the field that I'm more experienced in, which is like clothing business and a little bit of music. I have a little bit of music business, and yeah, just be able to want to support the youth and give advice to young folk.
Would you be able to, talk to, I guess, the audience right now and give them a little bit of advice on, maybe starting up a business in the clothing industry?
Ooh. So, it's for entrepreneurship in general, Indigenous entrepreneurship, or just what audience are we targeting?
I like the youth.
The youth, the kids. Okay. I think what I've noticed, what helped me with my success and growth is creating a circle of people who will support you but will give you honest criticism on where do you want to. You give them, I want to be here. How do I get there? And people will say, well, I was lucky enough to be able to talk to Dwayne. I'll be able to talk with the Vault Clothing, because he was one of the biggest New Brunswick Indigenous clothing brands as well, to be able to say, hey, I saw what he was doing, and I just talked with him like, hey, like, how do you start here? What is your pricing at? And we would talk like really like business stuff. He wouldn't talk about other customers because he knew I was interested in just starting out. And I find he was very grateful. I was very grateful for him I was very grateful for him that he gave me the advice and the time just to chat a little bit of early on for just starting my own little business. And what I really took away was the communities you go to. If you show up with a product that you believe in, people will they'll support. They will work. They will, if you show up and if you show that this is something for our community, for our people, it's that amount of like inspiration and amount of and especially during COVID, I've noticed, but there's more of an initiative to support support Olnu businesses and all that. And you see it with small beading businesses. And really where I got my start was going on the powwow trail, starting as a small vendor with my mom, seeing how basically customer service works, working with other customers. I'd say surround yourself with people who will be honest with you, but who will give you constructive criticism on where you want to be and where you want to go with this business. Give you, for me personally, as an Indigenous entrepreneur, I started on the powwow trail, and to be able to sell and be in a Olnu environment, to sell my Olnu products was very helpful. It gave me, I was surrounded by my culture, and to be able to provide that to a lot of other people was very inspiring to me to keep going, to be able to go to the clientele I want to sell to, and just talking a lot with other entrepreneurs and chatting about their little, because every story is different. Every indigenous entrepreneur has different ways they started up. Me personally, yeah, I just designed a little logo, and it really just started from there. I really liked the logo. I wanted to put it on a t-shirt. I asked one of my artist friends, like, hey, is this like look all right? Does this look cool? And if they said, no, it's trash, I probably wouldn't be here, but from one person just really saying, that looks cool, like, go for it. That's where it really all started. And being, just like having those private talks with people who you look up to, and having private conversations with people who you want to know where they got their start, can really help you wherever you want to go. If you want to be into theater, if you want to be into music, if you want to be in clothing, just really having that one-on-one and asking, hey, I want to be here, I want to be somewhere similar, or how did you get there? Where can I get my start in my situation? Because my situation is probably different from where you started. And because I started young. I started when I was 18. Yeah, I started when I was 18 with Rez Famous. 18, 19, yeah. But so I was in a different position than other people who are also on the powwow trail, who also are indigenous vendors. And being able to talk to the people who you trust and look up to, surrounding yourself with people who will be honest with you, and having a good support system, and knowing who to trust and who you can take advice from has always been helpful, and always been I've always been grateful to have that circle with me. And I think having that sense of community that will support you it might not even start in your own community. You might make a smaller community somewhere else from within your hometown, and then who knows? You don't have to necessarily get the support from the sense of community you get from home. It can be from friend groups. It can be from a bunch of people you meet at university. It can be a bunch of people you meet at school, at work. It can be that sense of community doesn't have to be the term community doesn't have to be so limited. It can always be in the sense of who you're always around and who you enjoy being around.
Yeah, awesome.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, before we, come to an end of this podcast, but I just want to ask you a couple of questions, just to lighten the mood up and get things a little bit, on the fun side, and just ask you some of your favorite things. So
absolutely,
it's going to be kind of rapid fire, and feel free to answer as fast as you can.
Let's go.
So, favorite food?
Spaghetti. When I was like 5, I ate so much spaghetti I turned orange. It was crazy.
Is that a true story?
True story. Or maybe I was like 3 or 4. Yeah, my mom fed me all like the baby spaghetti, and I turned orange. She's like, all right, enough. I'm like,
Debbie, that's enough.
But I haven't stopped.
Favorite movie?
Ooh, I'm very much into horror. My favorite movie now, and still, it's been for a while. It's a Japanese horror film called The Curse. Also, I think in Japanese it's pronounced Nori. But it's called The Curse in Japanese. It frightens me to this day. I love the indigenous storytelling it provides. It's very true to Japanese, very honest in Japanese culture. It feels very real, and it gives a lot of cultural insight and inspires me to be a storyteller within my own culture.
Favorite genre of music?
Hip hop. I work in hip hop.
Favorite artist?
Right now, my favorite musician, the one who's always in my rotation a lot, it has to be, there's this collective right now called Griselda. I really love this artist called West Side Gun from Buffalo, New York. very inspirational. He actually has his own clothing business. He has his own little collective, and I actually look to him for inspiration for stuff he does, because I recognize the stuff that I do is stuff he's very much been doing. He always creates clothing. He designs all of his own stuff as well. He is forming a music collective under his own vision, and I love that as an artist and a musician. So yeah.
Favorite season?
I'd say summer.
Favorite TV show?
Oh, favorite season of a TV show?
No, now favorite TV show.
Oh, favorite TV show. Oh, I just finished Better Call Saul. It was very good. It was very thrilling. Understanding the law, it made me. It's kind of bad, but the show about a terrible lawyer made me. I was like, oh, law is interesting. It made me want to study law more. So, or just understanding more of like a lawyer's duty, and who knows where I'll be in the future.
DC or Marvel?
I'd say Marvel right now.
Favorite superhero in Marvel? Favorite superhero in Marvel?
Ooh. Favorite superhero in Marvel right now? That would be. Ooh, man. I'm just vibing, but I'll just say Spider-Man. Easy.
Toby or Andrew?
Ooh, I'll go Toby. He's a classic.
Toby or Tom?
Tom. I like Tom. He's doing the work.
Pizza or burger?
Pizza.
Favorite toppings?
Just pepperoni.
Rez Famous or Famous Rez?
You know what? We'll go Famous Rez, just like because it's different. We're gonna switch it up now. I'm gonna cut every logo I have, flip it around backwards. It's gonna be crazy.
All right, that's all I have, man.
All right.
Thank you. Let me try to close this up here.
There we go.
Little thing here.
There we go.
So, I don't know. We'll figure something out. Yeah. Indigenous youth leaders are the structural foundation for our future as Indigenous nations here in Canada. Such talents as Talon Simon not only represent a role model for his communities and others alike, but he also stands as a pillar for looking ahead into our future. Thank you for coming on our show. And please, if you are listening to this, take a look on Rez Famous's website or catch him on the 2023 Powwow Trail.
Absolutely.
And get some of his awesome merch. Would you like to plug in your social media?
Just rezfamous.ca, as you can shop online. We do a lot of in-person pop-ups all over communities. You can follow us at Rez Famous Brand on all social medias. Me personally, I'm just Talon Simon on social media. You can see whatever thing I'm up to, be it music, art, acting, a lot of business stuff. I'm having a fun time. Having always a fun time.
Well, again, Talon, thank you very much, and thank you for coming in and doing this for us.
I appreciate it. It's very nice to be here. So thank you.
And thank you for taking the time out of your day and watching us. I hope you have a good day. Yeah, would you like to have the last word?
Up Jalasi.